Doctors, nurses of Reddit, what is the most obvious case of a patient faking it you have ever seen? Not the most obvious faking, but the craziest, drug seeking taken to the next level. Young person, with admittedly serious history of gastrointestinal issues, portal vein thrombosis, faked a GI bleed. How the heck do you do that, you ask? Went to the ER with a picture of blood in a toilet saying they threw up a lot of blood. Immediately put 2 IVs and bilateral ACs, IV in each inner elbow, and started working them up. Says they have to go to the bathroom and allows them to walk in there cause they still seem strong enough. Comes back out and said they threw up again, blood was everywhere. They get twisted away to the ICU, my unit, for immediate intervention due to the amount of blood that has been visualized. Called the on-call GI doctor, got a unit of blood transfused without checking their blood count again to stay ahead of the gross loss of blood. They throw up in the bathroom again with same bloody show. Though they aren't pale and still strong, blood pressure is still good. They are young and maybe can handle more before showing signs of deterioration. They are then sedated and intubated to protect the airway if their bleeding is that bad, and an EGD is performed to find and stop the bleeding. EGD is perfect. Nothing is seen. Went down with the scope a second time just to be sure. The GI doctor says there is no bleeding and doesn't know what to make of it. Everyone's confused. Nurse starts trying to figure out why. Finds an empty, bloody syringe in the patient's pocket while they are still out cold. This person took a saline flush, emptied it and used it to draw up blood from their IV and then proceeded to squirt it all over the bathroom to fake them throwing up blood. Even squirted some in their mouth the second time to really sell it. Patients so said they've been a drug seeker before and that they will stay as long as we give them drugs. We removed both IVs before they woke up, then explained to them nothing was found and they are perfectly fine. But we did find the syringe. Patient gets angry, says they're gonna leave. That's fine. Sign this form. Your insurance might not pay now. We'll call you a cab and pay for it cause you're still just recovering from being fully freaking sedated and intubated for that EGD. Patient denies cab and walks home with no cell phone or wallet. Cause SO had abandoned them as soon as we explained the patient was not bleeding. Not sure how long they had to walk or how far they got. Sad we couldn't do a psych hold. The patient probably needed some help. Craziest one I've seen. Speech therapist here. It's impossible to fake a hearing loss and I had a few during my training. You can't be totally deaf in one ear and totally normal in the other during a hearing exam. Your head is a ball of liquid, so the sound travels through and into the good ear, registering as a moderate hearing loss in the deaf ear. Further testing is required to determine how severe the loss actually is. I had one guy flinching each time the sound went in his deaf ear, reflexive response, and insist he couldn't hear it. The audiologist sent him for an expensive auditory brainstem response study, where they can test your hearing without participating. Don't fake a hearing loss, guys. You end up blowing a bunch of money and looking stupid. Maybe not the most obvious in conventional terms, but perhaps the funniest story involving faking it from my work in prison healthcare. Every morning the prisoners get a chance to move, mostly freely around the prison to go to their workplaces, or visits or healthcare if they are on daily meds, etc. Often if people are unwell they will come to healthcare and get a sick note so they can get a day off work without being penalized. Well, one day about 30-40 lads turn up at our healthcare window complaining of headaches, stomach aches, a few claiming to have vomited, although no confirmation from any of the officers. The really weird part was that every single one of them was from the same prison wing. We put in a security report worried something fishy was going on. Turned out that one of the guys on that wing had family appearing on the Jeremy Kyle show, UK's version of Jerry Springer, and all the guys wanted to stay in their cells and watch it. Not gonna lie, that's actually kinda sweet. I've seen patients faking seizures, but not like this guy. Arms and legs shaking, not the head or torso. Looked more like a rain dance than a seizure. Talking through it. Neurodoc happens to be close by and comes in the room when we call for him. Stop that, he says. I can't. Patient replies. Doc puts his hands on the patient's legs, hard and firm, and says stop. Patient stops. It's a miracle. As a radiographer, my favorite is always the kids who are trying to milk some extra time off school. They'll come in with their helicopter parent flinching and sometimes crying as you move their arm into the required positions for the x-rays, then use the affected arm to push themselves up out of the chair when they leave. Or if it's an ankle, they'll enter the x-ray room cringing and not putting it on the floor, then will jump off the x-ray table. Nice try, kids, no plaster for you. Not so much obvious, but definitely outrageous. I was a midwifery student working in an antenatal clinic when a 15-year-old girl, her 15-year-old boyfriend, and his mother came in for an initial appointment. The first appointment always involves sourcing as much history information as possible, setting up an initial plan, and then checking that the baby's heartbeat is tracking as expected. The family was very friendly and the pregnancy was obviously unplanned. His family had taken the young girl in and she looked very uncomfortable. The boy was daunted but doing his best to be involved. When we got to checking the heartbeat, I wasn't able to find anything. The midwife supervising me couldn't either. We were concerned she may have miscarried, but brought in the most experienced midwife to check. We had been treating this as a purely medical issue until both the supervising midwife and I took a step back and noticed that while the boy and his mother were distraught, the girl was looking more ashamed than anything else. It was the first indication that something wasn't right. As a group, they all went up to see the doctors in another building and I had to head back to uni for a class. The next morning I found out that after an hour with the doctors, she confessed that she had made it all up so she could move to Australia with her boyfriend so they could stay together. I'm a midwife. We had a lady who would come in every few weeks with a new guy claiming she was in labor or experiencing a miscarriage. OFC, we had to take her seriously every time even though we knew she wasn't. So we'd scan her etc. Only to tell her that she's not pregnant and isn't experiencing labor or a miscarriage. Thankfully, she's then turned to her guy and say that modern medicine is unreliable and he should just trust her instinct and will he help her raise the baby. The guy would often become afraid, how am I gonna raise this baby? What are the chances a scan is wrong etc. We'd reassure him that 100% she isn't pregnant. They'd argue, break up and she'd be back a few weeks later. Also, she'd come in by ambulance every time. My friend told me this story and it is probably the worst account of Munchausen by proxy I ever heard of. Lady came in the with what was revealed later as fake IDs for her and her baby. Baby was puking blood so she was taken in fast. Strangely, apart from the blood puking, the baby didn't seem that bad. CBC revealed normal results, which was definitely not expected. Doc found this suspicious and had the blood analyzed to reveal it wasn't the baby's. They finally realized the woman was making her baby drink her diva cup to make her sick and get attention. Faking being unconscious while peeking. Hard sternal rub. Presto. No longer unconscious and very angry. A patient who came in with seizures. It was questionable. Began to have one when the doctor was in the room, but noticed the patient's movement slow and they opened one eye a teeny bit to look at him and make sure he was watching and then resumed shaking. Discharged after basic workup. I forgot where I read it here, but someone told the story of a doctor that when confronted with this exact scenario, would say it's not a real seizure because they're not peeing themselves. Then on cue, the patient would pee themselves. I have had patients fake seizures to try and get admitted. They are usually careful to make sure everyone is watching before thrashing around on the stretcher. If you turn around, sometimes they stop and then will carefully peek to see if you are paying attention. After the reports of people peeking while faking seizures and unconsciousness in this thread, I'm pretty convinced no one ever mentally grows up past the age of 7. Having a seizure while doing the worm on the ground and telling me that only Dilaudid ever stops these. Yeah, narcotics don't break seizures, you have no idea what a seizure looks like, and you can't talk while having a tonic-clonic seizure. Nobody's buying your crap. Obstetrics here. We had a 27-week pregnant girl come in claiming her waters had broken and she was in preterm labor. Tested with a dipstick, not positive for amniotic fluid, but she was in our HDU just in case. She went to the loo and came out with a soaking pad and tried the my waters just broke thing again. Yes, she'd run it under the tap. Then we had a lovely chat about how amniotic fluid and water do not smell at all alike, and she stopped doing it for a couple of weeks and started faking PV bleeds by putting lipstick on her pads instead. I wonder what she was trying to accomplish. Had a patient complaining and passing. We heard them go plink in the bowl, bladder stones, meds galore. Of course, those things hurt. We sent the stones for testing. Turned out the joke was on us. They came back as gravel. Even the lab said not usually found in human anatomy. No more drugs for you, lady. Not me, but a fellow nurse used to work in the ER in Albuquerque. Had a lady come in with severe pain from her varicose veins seeking opiates. He washed the red marker lines off part of her leg and told her to leave. A nurse here. So many people fake seizures in our waiting room in hopes of getting a room quicker. Most recently funny one, I had a family member run over in a panic yelling, "He's having a seizure." I hopped out of my chair and took a couple quick steps only to witness a full grown man leaning against a wall, shaking in a way that can only be described as a terribly uncoordinated dance move whilst peeking at me to see if I looked worried as he shook his head back and forth. I stopped in my tracks and said he'll see a doctor soon with the most energy I could muster and retreated to my other tasks in exasperation. I had a girl in my team at my previous job. When she didn't feel like working, she would drop on the floor and fake a seizure. We picked up straight away that she was faking it. When she realized no one was paying her any attention, she would stop flopping about and get back to work. Doctor here. Had a patient fake a stroke to get pain meds. Did it during her 10-year-old's birthday party of all times. She perked up quite a bit when we mentioned pain meds and she requested a particular drug dosage, which was much higher than we were going to give her. She clearly had issues, but it made me sad for her kid. Former L&D nurse here. Watching someone try to fake labor is quite funny. They will push on the contraction monitor to try and make it look like they're having contractions, but they look like squares, not hills like normal contractions. They never have them if you're in the room watching, or they scream and holler while pushing on it. You can't fake labor. Little girl says she can't see a thing. Swears she needs glasses. Do any of your friends have glasses? Yeah, Chloe and Courtney have them. Big E. No, I can't see it. I put 0.00 powered lenses on. Oh, I can see it now. Here, mom. This is how blind your kiddo is. My niece did this. My poor sister sat in the exam feeling like an awful parent, thinking OMG, she can't see anything. No wonder she's struggling at school. How could we not realize until the optometrist had her try on the glasses that my niece insisted made her vision miraculously sharp. Nurse here. It's impossible to fake a seizure. The more you try, the dumber you look. What if I heat my body up to 107 degrees? Former EMT here. We had a patient who had a plethora of actual problems, but she would fake having seizures in order to get into the ER. I had heard dozens of ridiculous stories about this patient, so when I finally got called to her house for the first time, I was actually a little excited to see what she was all about. When we got there, I began setting up EKG leads and getting vitals from her while my partner was getting the stretcher out. My partner yells from the truck, "Hey, be careful. Sometimes she likes to fall out of her seat when she has seizures." No more than a second after he says this, our patient just so happens to tip right out of her seat. I swear I almost saw her smile as she did it. Not a doctor, but when I was younger I wanted glasses really badly, so I kept telling my mom I couldn't see. But she took me to the optometrist and she did the usual letter stuff, and then put a picture of an orange on the screen. I told her I saw a banana. Back when I worked EMS and before I worked in the hospital, we had a little more freedom on how we would assess if people were faking. I had a guy that was pretending to be unconscious. Conveniently, I was orienting a newly hired EMT. I explained to the new EMT if this guy was unconscious his arm wouldn't move from where we placed it. I lifted his arm straight up in the air and he held it extended there for the entire 30-minute transport to the hospital. I was actually impressed he was that committed. I finally had to lower it to unload him from the back of the ambulance. She thought she had a stroke and was completely paralyzed on her left side, but that was obviously not the case, as she periodically used her left hand to wipe her eyes. She was crying so hard she didn't even realize she was doing it, and continued to think she was paralyzed. I thought she was faking it at first, but it turns out the patient had conversion disorder, which means they thought they had a physical medical condition, and they were manifesting symptoms of one. but they actually didn't have it, and their brain was tricking them into thinking it. In essence, they weren't faking it, but they also weren't physically sick. Literally today, tried to fake being non-responsive asleep. When you would go to pull their eyelids up to check their pupils, they would tense them up and not let you open them. If you tried to passively move any limb, they would put equal pressure against you in order to not move. Now for the second story. Had a guy coming in at least twice a week for gallbladder attacks. It became obvious in short time that he was drug seeking, as he refused all drugs but the stronger opiates and would all of a sudden be in no pain and storm out when denied. After a while, when denied, he would vomit extremely loudly to show how serious this was. The only issue was, as he is holding the emesis bag to his mouth, you could see him bending his middle finger into his throat to stimulate his gag reflex. He continued this for close to 2 months before he realized he had seen almost every provider, and none were going to prescribe him opiates of any kind. Patient played possum and pretended not to be able to talk, move, etc., and did a pretty good job of sticking to the act, until the Foley cath. The patient was then not only able to move around, the patient was also able to scream FCK very loudly. Obviously nothing was wrong with them, they just wanted a place to stay. Obligatory, not a doctor, but I work in the ED as a security guard. I had one patient that had escaped police custody, causing a massive pursuit through the hospital wherein we apprehended her in a faculty break room. On the way back to her room she assaults my partner and I tackle her to the ground. As we get back to the room she begins screaming that B broke my leg. 30 seconds later, as the nurse is putting the blood pressure cuff on her, she begins screaming. She yells that now her arm is broken. She just wasn't sure of it until that moment. Everyone is rolling their eyes, and I guess she realized she wasn't garnering any sympathy from anyone, so she starts faking a seizure. At this point I've wasted 30 minutes dealing with this nonsense, so I tell the police officer she's faking. This woman sits straight up, stops seizing, and yells, "No I'm not, you freaking B," and then lays back down to continue her seizure. That was the first time I laughed at a patient. Patient was a man with a fistula with copious output, created by himself by picking at an incision site. He had a controlled substance alert, was continuing to request his oxy every 4 hours on the dot, which I gave. BC abdominal wounds are painful, and also requesting IV diluadid. When I told him that I wasn't going to be giving him the IV diluadid, he was very upset and tried to manipulate me into changing my mind, but I didn't cave. Later I enter into the room to see him happily picking it and extruding his own bowels. The ostomy bag that was catching the output was completed, filled with blood. The first thing he requests when I enter was the IV diluadid. Probably one of the grossest things I've seen in the hospital. Also, you get a lot of requests to push the IV diluadid quickly. Oh no, really? All the other nurses do it that way and always commenting about what a waste of time it is to push it slowly. I had a patient in the ER complaining of severe pain while literally eating a whole bucket of KFC fried chicken and mashed potatoes while sitting in the bed. I asked her, "How would you rate your pain? On a scale from 0 to 10? Her, with a mouthful of chicken. A 10 I guess, right?" You have been visited by the rare garlic doggo. If you subscribe to AskReddit you will have good luck for 69 years. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.